Blazers Thursday and Friday to rest his injured ankle. So we welcome in now ESPN NBA insider Dave McMenamin covering the Lakers. How optimistic, Dave, are the Lakers that 2 more days of rest is actually going to make a difference for LeBron?
I spoke to a source close to LeBron yesterday who said we're focusing on the big picture right now. So does big picture just mean 2 more games missed? I'm not so sure. And one thing, though, we know from reporting last week was when LeBron came back, no one necessarily expected him to come back as that game. The Kings game wasn't like circled on the calendar for weeks and weeks and weeks. In fact, I had a source tell me that he was looking at Monday's game against Denver, if not Thursday's game against the Clippers. So LeBron felt good. He sped up the timeline, but obviously now Frank Vogel said it's not a setback. I don't know how you couldn't call it a setback because LeBron said he had sharp pain for the first time that he didn't experience at any time during his ramp up. But right now, whatever happens over these next 2 weeks mean absolutely nothing compared to what could happen in the playoffs. So he is clearly prioritizing using every bit of time he can to get even better and get back for the playoffs.
Well, look, this is a tough spot because as much as he is superhuman, and we've all seen that, we haven't seen many injuries. Let's go back and look at the injury when he hurt his groin and missed substantial time. When he first came back, it was not like all of a sudden everything was great in La La Land. It took him a long time. They didn't have the rhythm that they wanted. So ultimately, when I looked at, how he's playing right now and how their team is going to look in the future, get right. Get 100% right. Because if you tweak that ankle, that becomes a setback. But if you can actually go out there and be 100% in 10 days and 2 weeks, I think he probably felt the urge to get back a little bit sooner because he saw them dropping and tried to avoid the play-in game. But then you realize that if you do get in the play-in game with that hurt ankle, you're not 100%. So it could go from bad to worse.
Richard, as someone who has experienced playing with LeBron and also experienced getting really old in the game.
That probably more so.
Right. Is this look, he is superhuman, as you say, right? And he's able to do things in year 17, year 18 that we have never seen a player be able to do before. But is the fact that he's had his 2 most major injuries of his entire long career, 2 of the last 3 years, is that kind of part of what comes with being this age in this sport?
You would say yes, but, I think the groin one, probably more so. When somebody rolls on your ankle,
it is what it is,
and you rolled on the ankle in such a weird way that it was a body, it wasn't like your weight coming down. So I think that adds a little bit of difference to the injury. And then you combine the fact of how short of an offseason that they had. So it's like your body is already, in deficit mode. And so, I don't know. When I look at this Laker team, I just feel like if they can get 100% healthy and probably more importantly, avoid the Clippers in the first round, that to
Clippers or the Suns, I think.
Yeah, I think the Suns, if they were 100% healthy, would be a 5-6 game series. But if they're not healthy, I think the Suns can win in 6 or 7. So I think they're more worried about a fully whole Clippers than a fully whole Suns.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
I just think there's a couple teams out there right now. If they played this Lakers team with LeBron still ramping up, the Lakers would be very susceptible to losing in the first round.
I just don't know can they even be, Dave, 100% healthy by the playoffs, considering that AD's been back, but it's taken him a few games.
Maybe not 100%, but if they can avoid, in my opinion, Clippers or the Suns, the 2 teams you want to avoid, and you could perhaps beat a Denver, beat a Utah in a long series in the first round and build up your confidence over the course of that series. You'd be playing good basketball at that point for 2 weeks because the NBA playoff series is so long. Then you can start to look at, okay, now we got a rhythm, we got our confidence, we got a little bit more health. And let's go into the second round. And then who knows what can happen.
That is a lot of ifs, though, right? And by the way, those teams are at the top of the conference because they earned that spot. They are going to be very tough outs in the playoffs. And look, if LeBron doesn't come back, even if he comes back, say, in a week from today, something like that, it takes guys a while to be 100%. And he says he's never 100% after an injury, as Dave and I discussed last week. That does bring us back to AD. How much responsibility, Dave, is AD expected to shoulder for these Lakers? We saw him step up in that Denver game. What is on him now for the next couple weeks as they try to avoid the play-in?
I hope he feels all the weight of the world on his shoulders, and not to be overly dramatic, but last year when he came to the Lakers, we did a sit down before the season started, and he said, when we struggle, I want to hear my name in the news. I want them, letting me know that that's not living up to the standard of Laker basketball. And last year he met every challenge. He played through injuries. He had that return game to New Orleans where he tweaked his shoulder and played through it, and they came back and won the game. And obviously in the bubble he was fantastic. Hit a game winner against Denver. We all know what he did. And he seemed to put himself on a higher echelon. I had a conversation with Bill Oram, who covers the Lakers for The Athletic, the other day, and we were talking about the Denver Lakers game and going into the season, how many executives would choose Anthony Davis over Nikola Jokic? Probably 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10. But at this stage of their careers, what changed in a year? And, Anthony Davis should take that personally, in my estimation, and be like, let's have everyone be reminded of who I am, what I'm capable of doing, and the team clearly needs him right now. And the player he was against Denver was different than the player he was in the 6 previous games he played when he came back.
Well, okay, so yes, there should be a tremendous amount of pressure on AD, mainly because when you look at his time in New Orleans and you're like, can he carry a team? Now, mind you, he didn't have the load of talent that, let's say, a Jokic has right now in Denver, but he had a good amount of talent, especially, the one year when they had Rondo and Drew and all that, and they made a little bit of run. Anthony Davis has to be able to look Bron in his eye and say, dude, get right. I got this. When you got superstar players and you got 2 superstars, and Anthony Davis is a superstar by talent's definition, right? So he has to be able to say, LeBron, you're 36 years old. You won a final MVP. I got this. Get rested, and I'm going to take this defensively and offensively on my shoulders like a top 5 player should. If you don't do that, AD, we can't sit up here and keep calling you a top 5 player. We can't. Right? Your team is struggling. You are back. You now have had a couple of games to get into your rhythm. You are in a stretch where the best player, one of the best players in the world, the guy that was leading for MVP, is now hurt, and he needs you to make sure that you can get him to the postseason, right? Or to avoid the play-in game.
Or the play-in.
If you don't do that, Anthony Davis, you want to hear your name in the news, that is 100% your fault. You've gotten 6-7 games now to get your rhythm. We need to see it picked up. And then if you do that and you guys struggle, that's fine. But right now, you want to be a top 5 player, this is your time to prove it.
Why don't Director Jill and Producer Steve, you can put that schedule back up. I just want to underline what we're talking about here, because we already know he's out for those 2 games, Clippers, Blazers, right? I don't know if he's coming back for the game against the Suns. To your point, Dave, he might not. They've got a back-to-back in the middle of the following week. He's probably not going to play both games on a back-to-back if he's gingerly coming back from a second ankle comeback. So then you've got 1 game against the Pacers, and then you might be going into the play-in.
Banner night is the 12th against the Rockets. They're gonna. You'd think if he can do it, you'd want to be a part of that. But even then, 2 games?
Right. So
let's say max, it's still only 4 games.
So my point is, when everyone keeps saying, oh, well, as long as they're 100% by the time they get to the playoffs, we kind of already know they're not going to be, because even if he's back, we just don't see players just presto, oh my God, they're exactly the player they were when they left. They usually need at least 4 or 5 games to get back to themselves.
And just quickly, I was texting with one of the players during this downturn. As long as they get incrementally better, day by day, game by game. They can't be 100.
Right, but they can get,
They hit the bottom. So start building back up.
Yeah, it is. Look, it is all possible. I don't think anyone up here would bet against a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, certainly early in the playoffs.
It's your time, Anthony Davis.
But it's going to be work. It's not going to be just that they breeze in and get it done. All right, Dave, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
We will see you very soon back here.
Nice suit, guys.
It is well dressed.
I think my tie matches your suit, actually.
Look at that.
Maybe
Here's what the Jump recommends for today. These two are going to do a clothing clash. In the meantime, Zach Lowe writing about how Clint Capella is anchoring